Now, two of Nigeria's influential oil sector unions strongly oppose the federal government's reported plans to divest significant stakes in joint venture assets managed by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited and NPCL. The Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria and the Nigeria Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers have warned that these plans could destabilize the economy, weaken the oil industry, and jeopardize the welfare of workers. They rejected the proposal to cut government stakes in JV assets by as much as 30 to 35%. Currently, the federal government holds between 55 and 60% of such assets through NNPCL. Well, according to the unions, the planned sale would generate quick cash, but at the expense of Nigeria's long-term economic security. I'm now joined from Lagos by the president of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association, Pengasan of Nigeria, Festus Osifo. Glad to have you join me on Arise Prime Time.
Thank you so much, Indy. Thank you for having me.
All right, Festus. Now, New Peng and Pengasan are jointly opposed to government divesting joint venture assets managed by the NNPCL. What really informs this stand? I mean, because we'll break it down as we go on, but what really informs this stand?
Yeah, thank you, Indy. So really, what informs our position on this is that as Pengasan and Nupeng, we represent the workforce of the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. Combined, we represent over 80% of the workforce in this industry. So it's our responsibility first to our members to ensure that their jobs are protected, to ensure that their welfare are enhanced. Then secondly as well, our members live in a society, in an economy, in a country called Nigeria. Nigeria must survive, Nigeria must thrive before our members will be able to survive. So having said that, for us, we feel that the move to go in this direction will not just affect the plight of our members, but is injurious to the Nigeria economy in the long run. I listened to your intro. I think it was spot on. That was exactly what we have said. So what informed this actually is for us to protect the Nigeria economy in the long run, because when we allow this to go in this direction, it will certainly boomerang. The revenue will plummet, and it will lead to a lot of other issues that we'll talk about as we go into the program.
Right, as we go on. Listening to you now, will it not be right to say, Festus, that this actually is about protecting your own interests? I mean, of course, anyone will protect his or her interests, but when you think about the overall interest or bigger picture, it makes sense for you to capitulate for the good of all. So is this not really about protecting your interest, just as you started, it's not really about your workers?
Yes, we are protecting our interests. That is why we exist. Pengasan exists, Nupeng exists to protect and promote the workforce within the industry. So our first responsibility is protecting the jobs. Secondly, to protect and enhance their welfare. That is given. But Indy, you see what has happened over the years in this country. You could see today. I mean, you've followed the trend in Nigeria for quite a while. You will agree with me that what was the reason that made our currency to plummet and get to where it is today? It is majorly because there was no supply of FX. If you remember, in 2023, there was shortfall in crude oil and gas production because of pipeline vandalization and all. So the portion that was coming to the federal government, what happened to it? It reduced. the money that was supposed to come in, the foreign inflow that was coming in, the foreign currency that was coming in, couldn't come in again. So it was difficult for the central bank to be able to defend the naira. And you could agree with me that part of the challenge that we had as a country was actually the devaluation of naira, from about 500 naira to $1 to 1,500. Being an import-dependent country, every other thing moves in that direction. So this is how it's going to affect the economy. So that is why we are saying it's not just our members alone. So if tomorrow the government earnings in the crude oil and gas reduces, once that government earning reduce, what is going to happen is very clear. Once earning reduce, it will be difficult to defend the naira, and the naira will keep moving southward. So that is one of the reasons we are shouting today. So it is beyond the workforce in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. Okay. We can easily strike deal with government to say our workers, our members must be protected, just as we've done in the past, when there was divestment from IOCs to national indigenous oil companies. None of our members lost his or her job. Instead, the jobs were protected and the pay was enhanced. We can also go in that direction in this case. But we know that it's not just about our members alone. Our members does not live in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria alone, but they live in the broader Nigeria economy. So if you don't do things to ensure that that economy is protected, it will affect us all.
Okay, fantastic. Let me raise these two issues with you. I hope you can take them together. Government holds, like I read there, 55 to 60%, and they want to cut down to 30 to 35. Now, some analysts argue that JV partners are required to contribute billions of dollars monthly in cash, called CAPEX, and operating expenditure, OPEX, which Nigeria has failed to do consistently. And then the second issue is that government is saying this is part of our effort to improve public savings, boost spending efficiency, stimulate investment, and then unlock resources for growth. I do stress this goal, just like I said now, is to optimize public savings, cut waste, and channel funds towards critical growth areas. This makes sense.
Indy, let me start from the last one. Yes, we are not against government, generating revenue to fix critical areas of the Nigeria economy. No, we are not against them. I mean, we support such initiative as long as things are done transparently and they are done according to the rules of a book. But this is the challenge. This is what we are proposing in as a union, we are one of the foremost trade unions in Nigeria, where our members, we have people of intellect, we have that could reason beyond boundaries. So this is what we have told government, that yes, we understand. If you sell these assets today, you are going to make maybe 5, 6, 7 billion USD. But there is a provision in the Petroleum Industry Act that said that NNPC, limited, within 3-4 years of its operations, could be listed in the Nigeria Stock Exchange. So what we are saying is this: instead of you stripping this asset, because this is stripping of asset, when you are supposed to be preparing, the board of NNPC, the management of NNPC are supposed to be preparing NNPC Limited to go for initial public offer, IPO. So if you take NNPC Limited if you list them today in the Nigeria Stock Exchange, the money that government will make by selling between 10 to 30% shares in NNPC Limited, I can bet you that it is going to be much more than the money they will make from this. Because if you value NNPC Limited today, it is close to $100 billion. So if you have a company of $100 billion and you are listing 20% of the shares in the Nigeria Stock Exchange, you are going to get average of about $20 billion billion USD. So that is the direction government should go, to respect the provisions of the Petroleum Industry Act, but not to strip everything naked. Then if you strip it naked and you now take the company to the stock exchange, what will be the value? It will relatively become valueless. So that is actually the strategic thinking that those in government today should be looking at. They will make more revenue, more than times 3 of the revenue they will make in selling this asset when the entire company is listed in the Nigerian stock exchange. Yeah, so we are not against them making money. We are not against them raising revenue. Good. But they can do this, in respect. Respecting the provisions of the PIA.
Yeah, but they're not saying, like I just read a while ago, and I just asked you, they're not saying we're giving up everything. It's just 30 to 35%, which is okay somehow, maybe half. So, they could still do what you're doing, because they still have some investment. It's not like they're divesting everything. Yeah, go on.
Yes. So now, this is testing the microphone, Indy. If you follow Nigeria history, this is what always happens. When they sell this percentage today, another government, if not this same government, will look at some other assets, and they will also sell some percentages of those assets tomorrow. So that is the danger. This direction is not the strategic direction to go. This direction is not correct, because again today there are obligations that NNPCL is holding. We had a meeting with the Pengassan local branch in NNPCL to understand some of the vagaries of what is happening in the company. So there are some obligations. For example, there are some loans that was taken during the Muhammadu Buhari era. When that loan was taken, it was backed up by crude production, and some of these assets were the assets that were put in place to say, okay, produce from here, you take also number of barrels per day to pay those loans. What is going to happen to them? That is in one regard. Then secondly, as well, one of these assets is the one Seplat bought from ExxonMobil, from specifically Mobil Producing Nigeria Unlimited. That's one of the best JV performing assets in Nigeria. One of the best, because from the wellhead to the production terminal is very short. So that's where you don't have issues of crude oil theft. That is where you don't have any issues that is affecting the Nigerian gas industry, affecting that assets today. So it's one of the best assets. So now there are obligations that needs to be met, right? So those obligations have not been met. So have we sat down to carry out a lot of simulations to see how will this affect the future of Nigerians tomorrow? Because you are just saying 30%. 30% is huge. If you look at, for example, the funds that come into the federation account, most of these funds, both the one that comes into FROIS, the one that comes into NUPROC, the one that comes in through NMPC, they are largely from these assets. So if we go in this direction, who says tomorrow, and if it goes unchecked, who says tomorrow another President Tinubu hands over, let's say 2027 or 2031 as the case may be, the next government may come and they may now also decide to go and sell further. If Abacha government, if Abdul Salami, if Ibrahim Babangida has sold these assets, we will not have them today. So what we are saying, we can optimize better. Let us not allow those cash calls. You were talking about issues of capex and all that. Yes. Let us not allow, because the issue of cash call is been largely managed over the years. Yes, there are issues here and there. I work for the upstream and international oil company, the upstream sector, so I understand these issues very well. Even as Pengassan, we have prevailed on NNPC in 2015 when I was branch chairman in Total Energies E&P, the upstream of Total Energies, to get some of these monies released, which they did. So we should not throw away the baby with the bathwater. Let's look at how do we unlock some of these investments? Good. How do we get some of this NNPC to be much more transparent? Good. And one of the ways is by listing. Indeed, if NNPC is listed and you and I buy shares in NNPC, we can go to the annual general meeting of NNPC and ask questions. Good. We can ask questions about the operations of the company, about the finances of the company, about how the company is being run, because it is a public quoted company by then. Good. And that is a strategic direction that should be undertaken.
Good thinking, but listening to you, Festus, two things I picked out there, like your last statement about throwing away the baby and the bath water. I'm also thinking what you're doing now and angling for, is it not also throwing away the baby with the bath water, what the government is saying? That's what I'm thinking. And secondly, from what I've heard you say, it may not particularly be about this divestment, but a question of trust. That who says if they do this today, tomorrow, they will not go ahead and begin to sell other ones. The question of testing of the waters. Am I right?
Yes, it's part of it. But overall, let's look at what is the reason you want to sell the asset. If the first reason is revenue, can you generate that revenue through another means with using the same NNPC? So if the answer is yes, that you can generate ×3 of the revenue that you are targeting balkanizing this asset, okay, why don't we look at that? That's option one. Yeah. Then secondly as well, if it's about the issues bordering on investment, I could say largely, why we didn't have investment in most of these companies over the years is because the international oil companies, they were wanting to exit the JV. As you could see, Shell exited, Renaissance came in, MPNU exited, Seplar came in, Ditto, Naok exited, and Owando came in. So these companies are there today now. These companies have capacity to attract finance. So why can't everybody sit down and say, okay, from these finances that you are attracting, how can government reduce the pressure on the national oil company so that they will be able to meet their cash call? I will tell you something today. That the reason we were not NNPC was not meeting some of this cash call in the past is also because of the pressure that is put on NNPC by the same government. I'm not saying it's this government, the previous government, they put enormous pressure on NNPC by asking them to go and borrow money, back it up by oil and gas production. NNPC largely was financing a subsidy for years. Subsidy is a federal government program, but NNPC was financing it without government giving them a dime. So all this put strain on NNPC. Good. But when the PIA came and made NNPC to leave corporation, and it now became a karma company, we were relatively happy, thinking that those external pressures are going to go away. Those external pressures are going to reduce. I can tell you categorically that if those external pressures today leave an NPC, I can tell you that they will do well. Right. But the challenges that NNPC is having today is largely because of those pressures that are coming from the political class.
Festus, we'll have little time. But before we go, before we round up, I'm thinking, I know that Pengassan, Nupeng, somehow always at loggerheads with the government, and it's about disagreeing. It's about disagreeing to agree. If government doesn't acquiesce to your view, what happens? Are we going to witness what happened with Dangote and the rest just a while ago? Or are you sitting down with the government to say, look, let's judge this is our idea. Then you meet at a particular point and then it becomes a little to the right, a little to the left.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Let me hear you.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. You've said it. Pengassan and Nupeng, I could tell you that, as I said earlier, we're one of the most foremost trade unions in Nigeria. We are extremely reasonable. We don't just throw away everything to say we are entering the streets or shutting down production in Nigeria. No, that is not our preference in any way. And that is not the thinking that we are having today. What we are having literally is for us to sit down. We put the numbers together. I mean, we believe strongly in data. We believe strongly in figures. And we have been crunching them. Our members in NNPC, our members in planning, in commercials, we have asked them to go and plot this data. If you sell this stake today, what will be the effect in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years. That is how we think strategically. So we don't just jump into the street and start shouting. No, we don't do that. If that will come, is very remote. The probability of that coming is very remote. And I don't even believe we will get there. We believe that we have reasonable people in government that we have been engaging. The Minister of Finance understands numbers extremely well, extremely intelligent. We have the CBN governor. We have all of them in government that we will sit down with and we will show them the data on what we think. So let them also convince us. We strongly believe that when we put this data forward, when we put this information forward, that they will understand with us to know that that is not the direction to go. That is not in the national interest for us to go into that. For us to go in that direction.
Festus, I must tell you, that's a very fine place to say thank you. It's about Georgia. It's about disagree to agree. Thank you so much for being on the program, Festus Osifo.
Thank you so much, Indy. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, that's it for this edition of Arise Primetime. Do join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Goodbye, and thank you for watching.